Like when you're using your internet and you're on a really crappy signal and you're just barely staying, and it kind of goes in and out, or everything's pixelated or slow. That's exactly what happens in your body. You don't have enough bandwidth. Once you've created a really effective cellular system and that has all the tools that it needs and is able to generate enough energy, those Herxheimer responses start to minimize.
Hi there, welcome to Finding Space with Alex Tyson, the show that celebrates the everyday legends who put in the hard work to become who they want to be and live the life they want to live. For people who understand that when we practice compassion and find wisdom within ourselves, we find success and happiness. Join me in hearing amazing stories from everyday individuals who have found incredible personal and professional growth through varied and, at times, wild methods of self-improvement and self-responsibility, and through their unique perspectives and work, have gone on to better the lives of those around them. From nurturing health to growing your wealth, or enjoying the present to crafting your future, no aspect of life is off topic. Caroline Allen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be in your part of the world.
Yeah.
Even if virtually.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God for technology, right? Get to have these conversations. It's really, really nice. So let's start. We're going to talk about minerals today, which I'm really, really looking forward to. How did you get into this space and how did you come across fulvic and humic minerals and some of the things that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, my story is pretty interesting and I think it might resonate with a lot of people. I actually came out of the tech world. I was kind of a top gun for hire in the technology world.
Right.
And I burned out of that. And when I burned out, I had flatlined adrenals. I had inflammation throughout my body. I had headaches almost every day. I had really super bad gingivitis and deep pockets and demineralizing teeth, bone loss in my mouth. I had sinus infections continually. They just come and go. And I had spent 3 years trying to heal my adrenals, completely flatlined. And also low thyroid. So I was in really bad health. And that was after being gluten-free for 7 years, trying to heal my gut from all of the problems of being gluten intolerant. So I kind of had a lot of these things as a child, but as I got older, they just exacerbated, got more and more. So my business partner, Dan Howard, suggested, he's now my business partner, he wasn't then, and he suggested I try these plant-based liquid minerals. And I was like, okay, sure. And I tried taking them. And they're, this liquid, really simple thing to take. It tastes like water. I'm not a person that likes to take pills. They bother me, and I have a hard time swallowing pills. So when it was like super easy, just get up in the morning, pop these little shots and be done. And after 2 months, I went to my dentist, and my dentist looked in my mouth and she said, wow, what is going on? The tissue in your mouth is no longer inflamed. It's pink and healthy. What are you doing? And I thought for a minute. I said, well, I don't know. I've been taking these minerals every day. She's like, that's great. Just keep taking them. 2 months later, I've been working with a naturopath for about 3 years trying to heal my adrenals, and we've been unable to achieve really any change in my adrenals. They were completely flatlined. The last time I'd seen her, she had wanted me to take hydrocortisone. And if a naturopath wants you to take hydrocortisone, you've got a serious issue. But I didn't want to do that. And we did the adrenal test, and I remember she turned the report around so I could see it. She's like, oh my gosh, look at this. And my adrenals were 1/3 of the way up the chart. They'd been flatlined, and they were in this natural sawtooth pattern, which they should be. And she's like, what are you doing? Did you take the hydrocortisone? I said, no, I didn't take that. I think it might be these minerals I've been taking. So slowly, over a period of about 6 months, really everything that I've just described to you started to resolve. So the inflammation in my mouth, all of the bloating, I used to have bloating every time I ate something, my guts would just bloat. So there's lots of stuckness. And then I had lots of stomach acid issues. I had, the fall came and went. I didn't even get a sinus infection, which I would get every fall and spring, and it would last for months. I stopped having headaches, and I also started sleeping better. Like my whole nervous system started to calm down, and I was like, how could this little bit of liquid create such amazing changes? So I started studying, and I'm a real geek. When I'm interested in something, kind of get out of my way, I'll just try and learn everything about it. And this is I'm sure you do, right? And so the thing about minerals is it's actually a very, very complex subject, and also humic and fulvic. And so I studied about the replenishment system in the body and how minerals work in the body. I studied microbiology and cellular biology, and I had to study some chemistry, and I studied about plant decomposition and soil composition, and I studied about agriculture and how what's happening in our agricultural world today. And I mean, and every time I'd find a word, I would look it up until I would just keep reading until I understood it. I mean, not just like intellectually, but had a picture in my brain about how that works, so that when I had a new concept, I'd be like, oh, I can see how that works, Mm-hmm. So I built this huge map, and in the process, I had so many ahas, and I was just like, this is amazing. Why don't people know about this? I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to heal myself. And when I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, if I had only known how simple supporting my whole body could be. So it was an amazing experience.
Oh, that's huge. And so many key points that you talk about there, which I feel like we would actually need 5 hours on a podcast, like the soil, like just recently I did a permaculture design course, and like the biggest standout for me in that was just like soil, people, soil, like get the soil right, like build good soil, we don't have that. And therefore the food we eat doesn't really have what we need from the food. So such an important piece. Okay. So,
and when you studied your permaculture, did they ever talk about humic and fulvic and relative to soil?
No, humic and fulvic didn't come up. It was just around like how to build soil, how to adjust the composition of the soil, how the ion and the oxygen exchange happens in the soil, and putting more plants in will actually help build the soil, and the soil help builds the plants. And it's like this whole ecosystem just within soil in itself. And in Australia, we're dealing with this massive problem across the entire country where the good quality topsoil is gone because mainstream agriculture has just ruined what we had here. And so now we're in this state where we need to build as much soil as we can. And there's amazing techniques to be able to do that. But the soil here is not great. And from what I've heard, it's the same in the States. You guys are dealing with.
It is. You have the dust bowls.
It's like 30 years left of usable topsoil or something like that, and that's it. And
this is where, we should have a separate podcast about this, because we are so excited, because I'm telling you, the humic and fulvic, and we're actually moving into the agricultural world with our humic and fulvic. We have some amazing things that can help repair and rebuild soil like much, much quicker. So that's another conversation we'll have.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally want to pick your brain on that, because it's a huge piece, Okay, so you went through this amazing journey, and just before we move on, I had one question on that. So was there anything else that you changed in your life and lifestyle as you went through that journey? Nothing. Wow.
Nothing. And this is why I did so much research, because I didn't start adding any. It was a time in my life where I had done so many things, done so many supplements, all that stuff. I was like, I'm done. And he's like, just take this, just take these. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I did that and vitamin D. And I also took thyroid because I do have low thyroid. It's genetic in my family. I think it can be healed now, but I'm working on that. So I didn't change anything except for taking these. So that's why I was so like, wow, how could these little cups of liquid make so much difference?
It's huge. Yeah, massive. Okay, so how do we understand how minerals actually start to work in the body and on a cellular level?
Yeah. Well, you know how I like to really start the conversation is think about your body. And, you know, if you pulled all of the water out of your body, do you know what you'd be? A little pile of minerals. Okay. So you think about soil, it's mostly minerals. When it gets broken down all the way to its components, it's minerals and water. So the entire earth, everything, it's all made out of minerals. So, so what we have to think about is the human body is completely made of cells. And we tend to think of our body like, you know, a cardiovascular system and, you know, digestion, enzyme production, or organs or bones or tissue or whatever. But every single part of your body is made of cells. And when you look at what powers a cell, when you go all the way down and into the mitochondria in the cells, what powers a mitochondria? Minerals and amino acids. Minerals and amino acids. So, and it's not just 5 or 6 minerals, potassium, magnesium, calcium, you know, that we hear about when you're doing electrolyte replacement stuff. It's a full spectrum of minerals, some minerals that you may have either never heard of or wouldn't even think that you need, like phosphorus, like molybdenum, like copper, really important minerals that you're not going to go to the store and buy a pill, or no doctor's going to say, gee, you're low in copper, go take some copper.
Yeah.
You know, maybe somebody who's really, really smart might say, you have a copper deficiency, let's figure out how we can bring that back up. But that's okay. So what happened for me in this process was, the first aha was, oh my gosh, we're made of minerals. The second was, we're cellular beings, and every single cell requires minerals, and we don't make minerals, you have to ingest them. So that was my first, like, aha. Okay. And we need a full spectrum of minerals. Okay. So now I started to look at, okay, how does the replenishment system happen? Like, how does it happen? How does a mineral get from out here, let's say it's a pill, and you take this pill, how does a mineral get from here inside my cell at the mitochondria? And this is an amazing journey that I went on, because this will change your brain. So we tend to think about this word bioavailability, and we think, oh yeah, that's that buzzword. Yeah, something, it's got to be bioavailable. And people say, oh, you got to take it a certain day, time of day, you have to take it liposomally, all these different things that make things more bioavailable. And minerals are very different. So that's what, we need to understand the stages of bioavailability to understand how to replenish minerals in our body.
It's definitely a buzzword, you know, in this space. People are, oh, it's not very bioavailable, or if the vitamin D isn't without vitamin K, you're not going to be able to, you know, all these kind of things. But okay, so that's interesting. So you're saying that it's not time and day and these sort of things. It's something
well,
deeper.
not with minerals, not with minerals. So one of the things that people tend to think about the body like you do a car. Like, oh, I need gas, put in gas. So I need oil, put in oil, steering fluid, whatever. Okay. And so we think about, oh, I need magnesium, put in magnesium. I need potassium, put in potassium. And someone out there decided there's a minimum required daily amount, a minimum RDA of 320 milligrams of magnesium.
Right.
But if they understood at all about, first of all, that's ludicrous that they've even determined that. That's what I determined. It's completely ludicrous. Okay.
Yeah, like who's deciding on those numbers?
Well, not only that, I mean, there's a 350-pound guy, and then there's a 120-pound woman, and that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And second of all, if they had looked at how the replenishment system works in the body, they would say it's even more ludicrous. So let's break it down for people. So this concept of bioavailability has 3 stages: digestion, absorption, and assimilation. So digestion, we think we all understand that, but guess what? We really don't. Because when you take a supplement that's made of bones, shells, rocks, lots of mineral supplements are made from those things. How well do you digest bones and shells and rocks?
Yeah.
Not very well, right? We're not really well evolved to digest those things. Our digestive systems don't break those down well.
I remember once someone said to me, he was talking about salt. He said, Alex, he said, like, show me salt when it's not in a ground down form. What does it look like? I'm like, well, it looks like a rock. He's like, yeah, because it is. He's like, now, would you just take a chunk out of that and then just eat that? No. The only difference is when it's in salt ground up form, it's just smaller. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easily absorbed.
That's exactly right. And there's other problems with salts that we could talk about at a later date too, but that's exactly right. But guess what? Think about your digestive system and think how well evolved it is to deal with, to break down plant matter. We are cellular beings. We are evolved to ingest and to metabolize plant-based material. Whether or not you deal with the plant antigens and all that, that's actually not in our products. We're going to talk about what that is, because that's confusing to people. They think plant-based, oh, it comes from kale. No, it doesn't. Okay. Okay. So the first stage is digestion. And one of the things this is really amazing. People don't realize that to digest something so to the point where it can be absorbed, it has to be digested all the way down to its chemical components. All the way down to its chemical components before it can be absorbed. Only about 10 to 12% ever of a pill or powder, anything that requires digestion, ever gets digested down to that level. If you have a very effective, efficient, and healthy digestive tract, you might get 18%.
And the caveat there is that most people don't have a very highly efficient digestive system, right?
Exactly. So we've got this first stage, and so now you've got some chemical components of something in your system, and now it has to be absorbed. And this blew my mind when I understood that. Because we tend to think, oh, absorb, okay, it's just going to, like a sponge, it's going to absorb it. That is not at all the way the absorption process works. So what we're talking about is getting something from inside your gut into your bloodstream. Okay? And so you imagine these particles that have been, or elements that they've been dissolved down to their chemical components, and your entire gut is lined with these finger-like structures. They're called villi. And these villi are lined by they're called epithelial cells. And every epithelial cell is lined with these receptors. And guess what? Every receptor is specific to a specific element. Who knew? So if I take 320 milligrams of magnesium and I put it in my system, maybe 10% actually gets digested. And now I only have a certain number of available magnesium receptors for that. And now if I'm taking magnesium chloride, it only has fewer receptors for magnesium chloride. Do you see? So you've greatly minimized the amount of actual absorption into your bloodstream. Okay? So now we've only gone through 2 of the stages of bioavailability, Because guess what? Most minerals don't do much good for you in the bloodstream. They have to get into your cells where where the mitochondria has access to them for ATP energy generation. Okay? So how do they get into the cells? That is a whole other amazing thing. They basically float in through openings in the cell wall via this process called diffusion. It's, this process in all liquid substances that tries to balance out. If you have more salt in the cell than out, if the channel opens up, it will try to balance the amount of salt that's inside and outside of your cell. Okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is that most of us don't have very permeable cells, first of all. And second of all, one little molecule of salt going across that, hitching onto water or whatever and going through that cell isn't very efficient. So what we need are what we call flavonoids. And you've heard this word flavonoids, but most of you are like, yeah, you're supposed to have flavonoids, whatever those are. Well, guess what they are? They're intercellular transporters. So what they do is they're strong electrolytes, and the nutrients, minerals, elements, micronutrients attach to them, and they bring them into the cell. That's what a flavonoid does. Really, so it greatly enhances nutrient uptake, which is why flavonoids are good for you. Most of us have very, very few. So maybe we've gotten about 10% of the magnesium digested down, and maybe some other smaller percent that's actually absorbed. And now an even smaller percent is actually assimilated into the cell and actually utilized by the body. Isn't it amazing? Can you imagine? Did you have any idea that that's how it works?
It's just a great reminder as to why supplementation is so much of it's wasted.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly right. Right. And it's another reason why plant-based minerals, once we get into them, are even so much cooler, because they actually support the absorption of all the supplementation you're taking, which is really cool, even more cool. So, so this is part of my journey. Like, if you can think, coming from where I came from and starting to kind of unpack all these pieces about, how do minerals work in the body? Well, who knew? I didn't even know what minerals did. I didn't know they were part of how the mitochondria creates it. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about it, and then I was like, oh, how do they get into the body? How, like at an atomic level, how do they actually get into your tissues? All of that stuff.
And now we're really starting to understand why there's so many of these kind of chronic conditions going around. Because if we understand the digestion process and the assimilation process, and the caveat there is that's pending we have a good digestion, which many of us don't, right? And so it starts to make sense as to why some of those symptoms you were talking about are such a common thing, certainly in the Western world and where we live, brain fog, lack of energy, poor digestion, thyroid issues. Like, these are so common. You can ask pretty much anyone and now we'll be experiencing one of those things. And now we start to understand, well, this is why. And even if we start to supplement, we're not really getting what we need from those supplements. And many people aren't, in which case they're relying on it coming from their food, which is being grown in depleted soils, right? They're not even human grade foods that we're eating most of the time. Even if they're organic, they're not fully thriving as much as they could be if we were, say, growing them ourselves and doing that whole process. It really starts to explain why so many of these chronic conditions are as prevalent as they are.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't it amazing? What gets me so excited is, guess what? Mother Earth provided a solution. Actually, Mother Earth provided mineral replenishment technology and full system detoxification technology.
So let's go there. It
already exists.
Yeah. So let's go there. So we're mineral depleted. How do we start to get minerals back into the system?
Yeah. So now we know that we're depleted because our food supply is depleted. And we know that the replenishment system doesn't work like a gas or like a car. You can't just fill up the gas tank. So how does it actually work? And this was the coolest thing when I started really learning about this. It's interesting because the people who know the most about humic and fulvic and utilizing it are actually the marijuana growers, because they use humic and fulvic to make their buds grow. And I learned this because we're at a show and they show up. When we're at a trade show or whatever, they show up and they're like, yeah, cool, humic and fulvic. I've always wondered if I should drink that stuff because I noticed how great it makes the plants look. I said, right. Probably not the agricultural stuff. Don't drink that, you know. So don't drink your plant, the ones you're putting on your plant. So, but let's talk about humic and fulvic, because they're what they are. Like, people don't understand what, and as soon as I say plant-based minerals, I jokingly say it's not an oxymoron, because we think of minerals as rocks, you know.
Right.
So imagine an entire rainforest back when the dinosaurs lived, and it's decomposed over millennia via all of those microbes in that healthy soil that you learned about, you know, all of those microbes. It's actually a very, very specific set of microbes that go through a whole microbial process of one microbe eats another microbe and excretes something or ingests, or however you want to say it, metabolizes, and then another microbe excretes, that microbe excretes something, and something eats that excretion, on. And it's a specific series of microbes that result in this humic and fulvic substance. And it's so an entire rainforest that's decomposed down into this mineral-rich substrata of earth. It's incredibly black. It's incredibly mineral-rich. And inside of it, it's called humate. And inside of humate are these two substances. One is called fulvic, and the other is called humic. And they're really, really cool. They have very specific capacities. So let's first talk about fulvic. First of all, fulvic it's a molecule. So think of it, it has like a structure, like a chemical structure. We could throw it up on the screen for people to see, for the scientists to see. Right. And it's a very, very small molecule in size, much smaller than a cell. And it carries with it 70 plus minerals and micronutrients in very, very trace amounts. And when I say minerals, I'm not talking about like magnesium chloride or potassium chloride. I'm talking about potassium. Like when you see your chemical periodic table and it says magnesium and calcium, those like base chemicals.
Yeah, the fundamental stuff.
Fundamentals. I don't like to use the word chemicals. That's confusing to people. Base minerals, okay? So it carries that with those, and it's a very, very small molecule, and it's a transporter. This is the flavonoid capacity. And it has an amazing capacity to change its electrical charge. It's the only electrolyte molecule they know that can change its charge. It's being studied around the world for this reason. And here's what it does with that amazing capacity. It attaches all these positive ions attached to it when it's in your bloodstream. And those are all the beneficial minerals, the nutrients, the micronutrients, and it carries those through the cell wall, and then it changes its charge. And those things drop off inside the cell. And then all the negatively charged toxins, bio-waste, heavy metals attach to it, and it carries those out of the cell. So it's an intercellular detoxifier and an intercellular transporter of nutrients in, bio-waste and toxins and heavy metals out. How amazing is that? So here Mother Nature provided this perfect little tool to not only deliver all the minerals and micronutrients, but also to remove from your tissues, from your cells, the toxins and bio-waste. Okay?
In a similar way, perhaps to something like an activated charcoal, but with more depth?
So actually really different. So that this is going to lead us to the humic. So charcoal only works in the bloodstream. Okay, it's really cool for the bloodstream. It does gather stuff and take it out. So that it's very cool. But it doesn't go intercellular. This is the thing about most detoxification protocols that you do. What they do is they give you things that make your cells excrete. And excreting is a whole different challenge, and et cetera. If you get into talking with detoxification people, I've done a lot of study about that as well. But to have this tool that actually does that intercellular transport without having to add excretors to get you to excrete, phenomenal. So now here's this symbiotic relationship between the fulvic, the intercellular transporter, and now you have the humic. So the humic, I call it Mother Nature's janitor because it's a very large molecule, and it's, again, a strong electrolyte. The way I like to describe it, because it's easy to remember, is like a Velcro ball. It's got a lot of surface area on the outside, and it's very sticky. And it has some amazing capacities, one of which we're going to talk about relative to the fulvic's job of carrying things in and out. It interacts with the cell wall, with the proteins in the cell wall, and it opens more channels. So if you're in a room right now, if the listeners are in a room and your room has maybe one door, one window. So now imagine the door and the window are open, now triple that amount. Now more things can go in, more airflow, more things can go in and out more efficiently.
So
that's what happens.
More flavonoids can do their job.
Can go, exactly. So that's what the humic, one of the incredible capacities, and they like to say it makes water wetter because it allows, so you drink water, but how much of it is actually getting into the cell? It actually opens more channels so more water can get in. You get hydrated, like your tissue is hydrated, not just your bloodstream. And you know how you drink and then suddenly you're just urinating a lot more? That's because you're not actually assimilating that water.
Yep.
So this allows for more assimilation. So the other thing that the humic does is it chelates with heavy metals. It binds with free radicals. It's exponentially the best antioxidant you can have in your system, more so than any superfood or anything you can have. Okay. So it's actually Mother Nature's antioxidant tool for all cellular systems, constantly removing free radicals. The other huge thing is that it's one of the only substances they know, Alex, that is that it adsorbs glyphosates. And what that means is it keeps it from absorbing into your system. And the way that it does two things. One, it creates an electrical film around the glyphosate molecule. So it inhibits the effects of the glyphosates in your gut, which we could talk about what kind of effects that has. And then it binds to it and removes it from your system. They actually, with the production farming where they use glyphosates, they consider humic a problematic substance because it removes the glyphosates from the soil and then the weeds grow. So it's so effective. It's really effective at the glyphosate. It also helps the glyphosate molecule break down more quickly, and there's more to know about that. But the main thing for people to remember is for remediation of glyphosates in your system, because we can't get away from getting them, we're getting them all the time, and for removal of from your system, it's the only substance they've found so far that can do that.
I mean, that is worth just sitting on for a moment, because the problems that glyphosates cause the human body and the world right now are endless. And it's I think I heard you were chatting with Dave Asprey, and I think that I think you guys said that something like 30% of all Americans have glyphosate in their urine.
Actually 80%. 80%. And that was a study done in 2013 and 14.
Right. So lots changed since
then.
So
now it's 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And glyphosate, to my understanding, doesn't break down. Like, it's there forever.
Well, that's not completely true, just to
Right.
be clear.
Yeah.
The glyphosate molecule just alone actually breaks down. But the problem is that when they use glyphosates, they mix it with surfactants and adjuvants, and they do multiple applications. And then at a certain point, it doesn't break down. They found it years and years later in the soil or in the plants that are grown in that soil.
Yeah. So it's huge. I think many of us are dealing with some sort of challenges with glyphosate, even here in Australia. So to be able to help take that out of the body, it's nice.
Incredibly. Yeah. And what I realized after I started really delving into the glyphosate world, I realized that a lot of the health issues that I was dealing with were probably from glyphosate toxicity as well. So I wasn't only remineralizing my body, so providing that foundational support, I was also remediating the glyphosates. So if you can do that in a little quick shot of liquid every day, boom.
Yeah. And so are these humic and fulvic liquids, are these fast acting in the body, or does it take time to kind of build them up in the system? How does that kind of work?
Yeah. Well, so let's think about that. So there's kind of two parts to that question. And the first is how quickly is your body able to utilize them once you take them? And that's one of the cool things about our products is the way that we have extracted the humic fulvic and then put them into these two products that are liquid. They're completely ionized already. So they completely skip the digestion process altogether. So when you drink one of our shots, by the time it hits your stomach, your body is already utilizing some of the mineral content there. It's already able to utilize it. It immediately starts absorbing. So in terms of like how quickly you can start utilizing the mineral content that you take, it's immediate. But in terms of remineralizing your system, think about how many years you've been depleted of minerals and how depleted we are. So it takes a while. It's not like, I will tell you that I have plenty of people who have had cramps all the time. They have always had cramps, and they take it for 3 weeks or a month and they stop having cramps, night cramps, like every night kind of thing. So it can work like that. Depends on how depleted you are. As I said, I was a very healthy person. I ate really well. But if you don't, if you're just eating really not well, you're probably even more depleted, and you might feel a big difference almost right away.
Okay. And can you overdo it? Like, can you drink too much?
I have never heard of anybody overdoing it. Okay. I will tell you that because humic is a very powerful detoxifier, for people who have autoimmune or have had mycotoxin, what I always tell them, they already know this because they know they're very sensitive, is that when you are going to start taking a humic supplement, you should start very slowly. And that means don't take it as a shot. You're going to take maybe a 1/4 teaspoon and you're going to put it in a 4-ounce glass of water, and you're going to drink it a little bit over 20 minutes or something,
right,
as opposed to just shooting it into your system and then asking your system to deal with that. Another way to, one of the reasons we have our products separated into the electrolyze, which is the fulvic supplement, and the microboost, which is the humic supplement, is because sometimes what you need to do is first start just taking the electrolyze fulvic supplement for a bit. Because think about what you're doing there. You're actually giving your body the opportunity to get more nutrition and more elements and micronutrients into the mitochondria so you can generate more energy in your body. So that's another way that's very useful if you know that you have challenges that way, is to start with the electrolytes for a week or so. Give yourself the ability to gain cellular energy to deal with the detoxification effort.
And are there any listeners will know that my partner's pregnant at the moment.
Oh, yeah,
Is it something that she can use, or should she kind of take it easy from the?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
No, absolutely. I'm going to tell you, I have many women who have used this through pregnancy, gestation, lactation, and also just for during the process of getting their body back. And they have amazing things to say about it. The other thing, and I don't know if you've ever seen this wonderful Netflix series called Babies. It's an
Oh yeah.
amazing series.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a whole section, one of the segments that's all about minerals and particularly with fetal development, with young child development, et cetera, and how important it is for the mother, particularly when the baby's drinking mother's milk, to be getting full spectrum minerals. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So one of the things people do ask, and particularly people who are pregnant or want with their kids, is, when you look at the certificate of analysis of trace minerals, you see it has every mineral on Earth. So, and I have lots of data about this if people are interested. What you have to understand is the humic chelates out the heavy metals. Okay. So there are very, very, very low trace heavy metals in everything you eat. If you eat a piece of broccoli, or you eat a piece of meat, or you eat some rice, anything, they all have very, very trace minerals, because that's what they're grown from. They're grown from the soil, and the earth has these things. So that wonderful, amazing capacity of the humic is going to remove those from your system. And there's plenty, and I lots of scientific studies that show for remediation of lead poisoning, of zinc toxicity, because there are people who get actually zinc toxicity, et cetera. Many, many heavy metals.
I want to move on to how you source the humic and the fulvic, but before we do, you just mentioned very briefly about mycotoxins, and so is that something that we can use humic and fulvic to help take out of the body and reduce our overall burden?
Well, so the whole thing with and I don't want to geek out too much, because I always hate starting to talk too technically, and people are like, oh, whatever that is. But, when you're dealing with mycotoxin, you end up dealing with this mast cell degeneration, which is what creates these Herxheimer responses. And Herxheimer responses are those, it's a rash, or it's a headache, or it's a stomach, it shows up in lots of different ways with people. And if anyone's interested, I also have a really great article about Herxheimer responses that helps people understand that. But what I say is this: I've had mycotoxin toxicity in the past. I had a really bad situation, very, very sick from it.
Right.
And so I have that in me, and I can get that when I go places that are very moldy. What I say is, since I have been taking the minerals and my system is remineralized, my system both has the energy, the cellular energy. Think of it like bandwidth, okay?
Yeah.
Like when you're using your internet and you're on a really crappy signal and you're just barely staying, and it kind of goes in and out, or everything's pixelated or slow. That's exactly what happens in your body. You don't have enough bandwidth. So then when something hits you, like I go to San Diego where it's very moldy and I stay in a moldy hotel, it hits me. So guess what I do? I take an extra shot. Now, I'm not going to suggest other people who've never done it before do this, but that's what I do, because my system has been very well evolved over taking these for 8 years to utilize that humic to just start going, yeah, let's get rid of that. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Let's clear this out. So once you've created a really effective cellular system and that has all the tools that it needs and is able to generate enough energy, those Herxheimer responses start to minimize.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, good to know. There's a lot of mold challenges in Australia as well.
Yeah. Oh, there are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because aren't there really dry areas and then there are really rainy,
there are,
more rainforesty areas?
Most of Australia is on the east coast, and then on the west coast, we're not in central areas as much. So the majority of the population density is in those areas. And And very
It's cold
recently,
still.
we had 2 bouts of extremely bad floods, kind
Oh
of
gosh, that
northern
does
New
it.
South Wales and southeast Queensland. And I remember saying at that time, I said, well, we're going to see a big influx of chronic health conditions in
Hmm.
6 to 18 months, because
Hmm.
people's homes were completely ruined and
Oh my God.
saturated by water, and
Oh
it's
my
hot and
God.
humid, especially in southeast
Oh
Queensland
my
area.
God.
There's going to be a lot of mold issues coming up. So yeah, really, really, really good to know what you were just saying. Okay, so
Yeah.
how then? How then do you guys go and source these minerals, as you were
Mhm.
saying, from the forest and they've built up over all
Mhm.
these years? How do you source these things? And my question here is it like oil? Are we going to run out?
Mhm.
Like, and are there
Well,
certain areas in the
mhm.
world where we can get these things from?
Yeah. So there's actually quite a few areas in the world because there's lots of places where there have been ancient rainforests
Yeah.
that have decomposed over millennia. So um, our particular source is in the U.S. and it's the richest source that has been identified on Earth. There
Mm,
are lots of other sources. I do want to say that not every source is the same.
mm,
And I also want to be very clear that you need to determine where yours is coming from, because there are some sources in China and some other places that actually have way more heavy metals in in the source. So we don't recommend that. So and I haven't actually created anything that could actually help people determine that. I just know that our source is really phenomenal. And
mm,
then the other thing is, how are they processed? So when you hear of humic acid and fulvic acid, ours are not acids. Humic acid, fulvic acid are there's kind of confusion because when oftentimes the way that they extract the humic and fulvic, or particularly fulvic, from the humic, they use hydrochloric acid, and it renders a completely different substance. It
mm,
renders it an acid. And again, it's not the worst thing. It's better than nothing for sure. It's full spectrum, but an acid molecule then has to be digested. It has to be broken down into its chemical components before it can be absorbed. So, and also they taste like hell.
right.
So lots of people, we used to put up a sign that said minerals with a, face like, and
Right.
then try ours with a happy face, because it's very rare to find even, like gut ion, or, if you know Zach Bush's product. I love Zach Bush, but his product doesn't taste very good,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
or other trace mineral products, the product called Trace, it tastes bad.
mm,
So I'm a person, if I'm going to take something every day, I just want it to be really easy,
mm, mm,
and that's because of our proprietary process. We use no chemicals. It takes much longer, but it renders this beautiful crystal, like really clean substance.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. I can certainly attest to that. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I've been using your product a little bit, and it just tastes like water. It's actually quite nice,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it has that feeling of like, I don't know, it feels very alkaline to me. I don't know
It
if that's
is.
actually
It
the
is very
case, but
alkaline.
yeah,
It
yeah,
is.
you
Yeah.
can kind of sense it when you drink it. It's like, oh yeah, that's really alkaline and quite nice, you know.
Yes, it is. And the body kind of goes, ooh, that was
Yeah,
good.
totally.
It really does. So there's other substances like shilajit or shilajit, some people call it, however you
Yeah.
want to say it. That's also humic and fulvic. And so again, it has to be digested first. Again, not a terrible thing. And I don't think it tastes good. Some
Mm.
people say, oh, I don't mind it. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So depends
Yeah,
on
cool.
what you're acclimatized to,
Yeah, I think you can. I've
or
seen
acclimated, I mean.
some shilajit from the Himalayas, I think they say it's from, or
That's
something.
correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
Yeah. And it is well known for all sorts of longevity and health benefits in the Eastern
Yeah. Cool.
countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if people want to get involved and start using some beam minerals, where can they start? Because you guys have a few different products.
Yeah. So so first of all, they can go to beamminerals.com. And I'm just letting people know we are going to be starting an Amazon store here soon. We're working on it, so that might be helpful to the international people over time.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention to your audience, in case anyone knows, I am looking for an Australian distributor so that I can help the Australian people get the product much more effectively, efficiently. But you can order it right now from our website. Again, beamminerals.com. We have this set. It's called the Advanced Set, and it includes our two products, MicroBoost and Electrolyze. Actually, I have them over here. In case I know it's not great for people who are listening, but if anybody's watching, these two products, one's purple and
purple
one's
bottle.
the green and the purple bottle. And the green one is the fulvic, and the purple one is the humic. And what we say is we call them the advanced set because it's like the gold standard. If you want to really upgrade your health, you just take a half a capful of each of those every single day. And that's really important, every single day. You don't take it a couple days and forget for a week and then go back and take it a couple more. It won't really have much effect because these build up in your system over time. Because they're completely ionized, they stay floating in your system much longer than pills and powders that you're taking. So remember, only like a very small amount of that pill and powder ever gets ionized, but 100% of this is ionized. And you're constantly infusing your system every single day with this small amount. It's really how natural systems work. So electrolyze and microboost, half a capful a day. If for some reason you're somebody who travels a lot and it's not very effective to have liquids, we also have a capsule called Electro Boost. And we really say that it's for travel. It's not the best, it's not the most bioavailable. You do have to digest it, but it is more concentrated. So that is a really effective tool for people who travel. And last, we have an amazing product. It's called Instalights, and it's a fulvic spray. And if you have anyone in your constituents who has leg cramps at night, first of all, we know that's a mineral deficiency, and you need to take them internally. But until you've gotten your system remineralized, you can use the spray. And what you do is you literally spray it on your legs before you go to sleep. Most people won't get a cramp, but let's say you're super deficient, you still get a cramp. You wake up, you spray it on, it releases most people's cramps in 30 to 45 seconds.
Wow.
It has no smell, it has no residue. It's amazing for menstrual cramps, incredibly helpful for menstrual cramps. It's incredible just for skin, for any kind of abrasion. If you get a bruise or a gash, you just spray it on. Once the scab is there, you just spray it on. You'll be amazed at how quickly. Fulvic is well known for wound healing, its wound healing capacities, because it's detoxifying, doing intercellular detoxifying, you see, and it's bringing all the nutrients and minerals directly into those mitochondria in the local area so it can heal way more quickly.
Amazing. Yeah. I need to try some of that.
So those, yeah, oh, yeah, that I'll send you some of that. That'll be my present to you. Yeah, it is. It's also great for people who work out. So what you do is you spray one side, not the other, and then you do your workout. Most people notice that the side they sprayed has more capacity during the workout. If you work out really hard, so you're actually building muscle, you're going to have some lactic acid buildup. You spray it after your workout, and then you notice that side that you sprayed is way less sore than the other.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
really
wondering
cool.
if I'm wondering how I can include that in like a sauna session. You know, if I get up, go for a run in the morning, come back, have a 20-minute infrared sauna, and maybe spray some of that on like the lower back.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. especially after you, if you're gonna, I mean, don't spray it before, if you're gonna shower, then get out of the shower and spray it on and let it dry. Really, really, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that. And shout out to all the sauna users that are listening, because there's many of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I was at the biohacking conference and I saw a sauna I really want. I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of the company. It's so amazing though. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So lastly, to wrap up then, if you were to give 3 tips to help people remineralize their body, what would they be?
I would say, first of all, look for a mineral supplement that is bioavailable, easy to digest, easy to absorb, supports assimilation. Okay. I would look for a full spectrum mineral supplement, because when you take those megadose supplements, not only does very little of it get actually absorbed, but you also create mineral imbalances. Minerals work in pairs, that balanced pairs. That's why they call it an electrolyte balance. So you want to provide low levels, a constant infusion, so that your body can actually utilize what you're putting in there. Okay.
Nice.
Of course, I would say use Beam Minerals. That would be my third point.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And just, people go on our website and just read the testimonials. You just read person after person who really feels the difference.
Caroline, thank you so much. This has been a super insightful conversation. I've definitely learned something. I'm going to say on behalf of everyone listening, we've all probably learned something today. So thank you so much for sharing your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I am on a mission to empower people with the knowledge of minerals and their body.
Thank you.
Thank you.